So Evelyn is going to help us out with a little card trick. You can stay where you are. I just want to make sure everyone can see what's going on. Evelyn is going to choose one of these cards. Wherever you say stop as I shuffle through the cards, that's going to become your card. Do these instructions make sense, Evelyn? See, she's doing good already. Evelyn, just say stop as I shuffle through. Are you happy here? You know what I like about you? You're happy.
I'm very happy.
Take a look at your card. Do not let me know what it is. No, that's okay. You can come right up. Don't tell me what it is. I'll show the people around you in case you forget. Remember your card? You're writing it down. Now, you're going to find out that this is a very disappointing card trick. But I'm doing this for a reason, because this really has an important lesson attached to it. So you had a free choice of any card, correct? You could have chosen any card. And yet, let me move my lemon out of the way. And yet, I have this giant-sized playing card. Everyone go, ooh. I use a giant-sized card because this is kind of a big deal. I told you the jokes are free. Thank you for clapping, Evelyn. Do you believe, Evelyn, that your card that you just picked a moment ago is on this card? A lot of no's. Leave it up to Jay. Well, that's life, right? Just waking up in the morning, it's a big risk. Now remember, this story is all about perspective, right? So it seems unlikely that your card is going to be on here, but it is possible. It's possible, but unlikely. For the first time, what was your card? Yeah. You can say it. You had to look. Say it again so everyone can hear.
2 of hearts.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn over the card. I'm going to show everyone Evelyn's card. Everyone's going to burst out into a big round of applause. Evelyn, take a look. Your card.
Yeah!
Do you see it? What's that?
Oh my God, it's the 2 of hearts.
It's the 2 of hearts.
It's right there. It's right there.
Give Evelyn a nice big hand. Now, what those of you in the back can't tell is all 52 cards are on this card. Meaning there was no possible way for this to fail unless you picked a joker, in which case I would have been that card then. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Let's give Evelyn a nice big hand. Thank you. I like to perform this trick, mostly because it's ridiculous, and I'm a ridiculous guy, but it also illustrates how taking a step back from a situation and seeing a difficult situation, how it can become a positive situation, how regardless of what happens, we're always going to be able to facilitate a positive result. Now, this is a simple example of this. How do we apply this to everyday life? Well, think about it this way. We're all coming from different places, right? And yet we're all gathered in the same room for the same purpose. And yet even though we're all gathered here for the same purpose, we're all experiencing something slightly different. And we can't help it. It's because of all the different perspectives that we're using to interpret all these events around us. If any of you wanted to change your experience, you could easily leave the room, but then the counselors would chase after you. Sometimes, what was that? Citations, that's right, citations. So sometimes we get into situations where it's not possible to leave the room in order to change that situation. So we get into circumstances that we just have to sit with what's going on and do the best with what's happening. And when that happens, we can still change our experiences. And this is really amazing because it seems like a magic trick, and probably if I heard this years ago, I would have thought, you're crazy, it's impossible, but I'm telling you it's true. You can change your experience by changing your perspective. I have 2 quotes for you that's related to this. One of them is ridiculous. It's from a comedian, Stephen Wright. And the other one is from the author Napoleon Hill. I'll tell you the ridiculous one first. He says that sometimes, even when you lose, you actually win. Kind of like playing a game of musical electric chairs. It's a game you don't want to win, right? But the idea is true. A lot of times we're playing games that we think we want to win, But when we realize what's going on, we realize, well, maybe this is a game that we shouldn't even be playing. Maybe this is a game that I don't really want to be winning. Now, the other quote that I mentioned is from Napoleon Hill, and he said that sometimes the worst thing that could happen to you could be the best thing for you, so long as you don't let it get the best of you. The worst thing could be the best thing, so long as you don't let it get the best of you. Now, this positive mental attitude approach is so easy to say. It's easy to say it when times are good and you're happy and things are great and you're here at Girls State and things are wonderful. It's completely, entirely different to say this when you're in the thick of life and things aren't going your way. But I promise you, if you work at this every day, when times are good and when times are bad, amazing things are going to happen. I had an experience a number of years ago. This was the summer of 2007. And I was hired to work at a restaurant as their magician. That's a thing, restaurants hire magicians. My job was to go table to table, performing like card tricks and tricks with various items to distract the customers from the fact that their meal was still in the kitchen and hadn't come out yet. That was my real job, not to entertain, was to distract. Just like politics, right? So this one night in the summer of 2007, I was performing in the dining room when all of a sudden there was this commotion on the other side of the room. And I turned around and there was this a bunch of people standing around this elderly couple. And it became apparent that the woman was choking on her food. Now, I'm a horrible judge of age. I really am. If I didn't have a license, I would barely know how old I am. I'm just a horrible judge of age. But if I had to guess, this woman was probably, give or take a few years, about 120, 130. She was really old. And she was choking. I mean, this is terrible whether you're a baby or a teenager or an adult. She was choking. And she was able to cough it up, and she was fine. Right? She was able to breathe. It didn't last that long, so she was fine. But she was visibly distraught by this, more distraught than probably someone should be if they just choked for a couple seconds and then they were fine. Knowing my job is as the distractor, being the magician, my job is to distract. I decided to go and distract this elderly woman from the negative situation that had just happened. I didn't perform any magic tricks for her, but what I did do was I listened to her story. And sometimes that's the best magic trick that any one of us can do, is just to honestly listen to someone and hear their story. This is what she said. She said that just a couple weeks before this happened, sitting in the same restaurant, sitting at the same table, she also choked on her food. And I stopped her right there and I said, you might want to eat at a different table. She didn't think it was funny. Admittedly, it was rude to stop someone from telling their story. So she ignored my interruption and continued. I thought it was funny, though. She said that on this day, it was worse. She really couldn't cough up her food. She could not breathe. And it got so bad that at one point, someone in the bar had to come over and just pound and pound on this frail 120-something-year-old woman, just pounding and pounding at her. And her husband said that at one point, her skin, her face began to turn gray. And possibly before it would have been too late. Finally, it was dislodged and she could finally breathe. And of course, the owners of the restaurant were freaking out at this point, thinking that a customer is going to die. This is horrible for business. They, of course, called an ambulance. And even though she could breathe fine, the ambulance, when they arrived, they still brought her to the hospital, thinking maybe the Good Samaritan had broken some of her ribs, pounding on her, trying to get her to breathe again. When they got her to the hospital, they didn't find any broken ribs. But what they did find was the reason I'm telling you this story. What they found was an aneurysm that was about to burst. This was someone's mother, someone's great-grandmother, someone's great-great-grandmother. She had lived her entire life, and had this horrible experience not happened, she surely would have died soon. And yet there could be someone no more than 26 years old, and it's just, for some reason, their time to go. It's all about perspective. It's often said that there's nothing good about tragedy, that it's better to be at peace than at chaos, and better to be happy than sad. But just as choking on a piece of food can have this greater meaning, I would suggest that tragedy and sadness and God bless you, all of these things have a greater purpose and a greater meaning, so long as we're able to take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. So before I get to the last story, I have a question for you. What are you choking on? And how might you benefit from it?